In my ideal of trying to do one Sunday on a book through the entire content of Scripture, I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. If I can do this with simply one Sunday per book, because like Exodus has got so much material in it. So I've come up with a little bit of an outline, and unfortunately I did not get this into the bulletin, but here's the outline that we're going to look at this morning. Capturing a nation, qualifying people, confronting, crushing, calcifying, which is when you alliterate, you want to really try to, and sometimes you find calcifying, something gets really hard, okay, so hardening. Conveying and carping. Now, carping is not the fish. Okay, carping is when you complain. Okay, codifying. I think is it codifying or codifying? Codifying. Okay, all right, good. Some English, good English speakers here. Codifying and calving. That's they brought the calf up, and they worshipped it. So calving, I thought that was cute. And then there's constructing. So let's just go through these. Capturing a nation. Now we know that Joseph went to Egypt and saved Egypt and a good part of the known world as they're going through the famine. So we know he did this. And time goes on and people fail to remember. People tend to forget. Now, in verse 8 of chapter 1, verse 6, Joseph and his brothers and all the generation died, but the Israelites were fruitful. They multiplied greatly, became exceedingly numerous. So the land was filled with them. So here you have these foreigners, these people who came in to sojourn for a while, and they're kind of taking over everything because they're prospering so much. Verse 8, then a new king who did not know about Joseph or did not regard him, we're not sure exactly what the Hebrew says, he didn't either know about or didn't care about Joseph, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So they put the slave masters over them. They put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built these cities. The more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the more that Pharaoh and his cohort tried to keep the Israelites squished and down, the better they did. Now, we must understand that some of the things that God will bring into our lives we're not going to like. But God has a plan through these things to work his will, to work his glory, to work his good, which is our good as well. So at times, what Israelite would say, hey, you know what? We know that God's plan is going to be for us to be enslaved for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yes, that's so great because we know that God is working. That's not usually what we do. And it's okay to say, Lord, deliver me. But if he does not, we be patient and we trust in his plan. Now, qualifying. This is fascinating. So Moses, he grows up in Pharaoh's house, and somewhere along the line he finds out who his source people really were. And recall there's an Egyptian, and he's beating up somebody, and Moses takes him and kills him and goes, whoops, buries him in the sand. And the story gets out among the Jews, and Pharaoh hears it, and Pharaoh says, hey, I'm going to kill him. Maybe Pharaoh didn't really like Moses because this is a pretty strong reaction. But so Pharaoh sets out to kill Moses. And so Moses needs to get out of there. As I put it there very, very skillfully, Moses sought to do something about the plight of his people on his own, and he failed fleeing Pharaoh's frenzy. Isn't that great? Failed fleeing Pharaoh's frenzy. Alliteration is fun sometimes. So he tries something on his own. We don't see God telling him to work to deliver his people. After all, he's a prince of Egypt, and this is what he does. Not a good thing at all. So we know that he goes out into the desert. He meets his father-in-law. He gets married to Zipporah. And 40 years go by. 40 years go by. He probably has forgotten all about Egypt and all about the people who were suffering, but God has not. So in Exodus chapter 3, verse 10. Let's even go a little higher to verse 7. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people. The burning bush thing has happened at this point. I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So go now, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So God says, I've got a job for you. And rather than Moses going, cool, what is it? It's like, who am I? I'm nothing. I'm a flea. I'm out in the desert. I tend sheep and goats. And on top of that, I'm a fugitive from Egypt. If I go back, who am I? I'm nobody. So God's reply to him is this: I will be with you, and this will be a sign to you that as I have sent you, when you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. So God's got this whole thing planned. I'm going to send you, you're going to get the people out of Egypt, and you're going to come back to this mountain, you're going to worship me here. This is going to be great. But then Moses struggles. Suppose I go, now remember, he doesn't speak well. But suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what's his name? What do I tell them? The idea here is, well, God, who are you? We know these stories a little bit that have been passed down, but really, who are you? And God's response is, I am who I am, or Yahweh. This is what you are saying to the Israelites. Yahweh, I am, has sent me to you. And God gives some other instructions to encourage the Israelites to talk to the elders, to say, hey, this is going to be great. We're getting out. The God of our forefathers is going to lead us to a great and spacious place. And in chapter 4, Moses doesn't want to do this. Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord has not appeared to you? I'm going to fail. Lord, I'm going to go there. I'm going to talk to the Israelites, and they're going to ignore me, and they're going to scoff. This is going to be terrible, God. I'm going to fail. Almost I think Moses is saying, you got this plan, but is it really any good? So we go to chapter 4, verses 2 through 20. We go with the snake thrown on the ground, put the hand in, it comes out leprous. God's taking care of this. He's planned this in advance. God is not simply thinking, oh, Moses, you bring up a great point. What should I do? Oh, here's a couple ideas. God's already got this all planned out in advance. Is it going to be easy? No, but it is planned out in advance. So Moses, in verse 10, of course, said to the Lord, oh, Lord, I have never been, and this is where he probably exaggerated whatever speech problem he might have had. Oh, Lord, I have never been eloquent either in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. So things haven't changed in the past 10 minutes. I am slow of speech and tongue. Lord, I'm incompetent. God's answer is so good. The Lord said to him, who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say. It's almost like God is going, excuse me? I'm God, and you're saying no, and you're making no. Imagine if one of your children, and if you told your children, hey, I need you to go cut the grass. Oh, but it's really hot out. But I need you to go cut the grass. But there's a lot of weeds. Right, that's why you have a lawnmower, to do this. And just trying to make excuses. He really doesn't want to do the task. So he reveals this fully in verse 13. Moses said, oh, Lord, please send somebody else. And this is so cool. God has already taken care of everything for Moses. Check this out. The Lord's anger burned against Moses. I do not want God's anger burning against me. That would not be a comfortable position to be in. And he said, what about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I know that he can speak well. He is already on the way to meet you. Moses didn't know this. See, God had this whole thing, even compensating for Moses' whatever kind of speech difficulty he had, he's already pre-planned this in advance. Aaron is already on the way to meet him. God's got all this figured out. But Moses doesn't want to. It's scary. You're going to go up before Pharaoh, the guy who can say, oh, Moses, oh, yeah, remember that Egyptian you killed? Take him out. So probably a little bit scary, but God is going to be with Moses. He's going to take care of all this. Chapters 5 and 6, they go to the people. Let's see, initially, after Moses and Aaron, Pharaoh said, I listened to the whole thing on my way down to Virginia, and so I'm going off too much recall from hearing the reading. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they said, let my people go, that they may hold a festival to me in the desert. Pharaoh, who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord. I will not let Israel go. Pharaoh is a god within Egyptian culture. And so, hey, what kind of God is this telling me what to do? It's like, no, it's not going to happen. Okay, Pharaoh has a very, very proud heart. The king of Egypt, verse 4. Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Go get back to your work. Then Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you're stopping them from working. That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and foremen in charge of the people. You're no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. I don't know how you make bricks. Apparently straw is part of the mixture, holds the bricks together. So they didn't give them straw. They had to produce the same number of bricks. That's unreasonable. So the people, they're pretty upset. The Pharaoh goes, hey, you're not making the bricks. And they say, well, yeah, but how can we make the bricks at the same rate? We're not being given the same supplies. Pharaoh, lazy. That's all you are, lazy. This is why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Verse 19, the Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble when they were told you're not to reduce the number of bricks required for you each day. They left Pharaoh. They found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them. And they said, the foreman said, may the Lord look upon you and judge you. You have made us a stench to Pharaoh and his officials and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. So that didn't go very well from a worldly perspective. But does it go well? Yes, because God has got this plan to get his people out of Egypt in order to create a nation, in order to bring us Messiah 1,000 years later. I mean, this is what God is doing. So, crushing. If you look at the plagues and you study them, you find out that the plagues are simply a huge attack on the theistic system, on the gods of Egypt. The god Hapi, I'm not sure which that is. As I've looked at it, I see both spellings. But the Nile was a god that they worshipped. I mean, it would make sense to worship the Nile because if the Nile doesn't do its job, you don't have crops. You know, the Nile has flooding every year. You can depend upon it. So they worship the Nile. So the first plague is the Nile River turns to blood. So here we have Yahweh taking out the Egyptian god of the Nile. Okay? So it's an attack. Frogs. They worship frogs. Heka, the toad goddess. I don't know if Tekka would be really thrilled about that. The plague of the frogs, they come in. So here you have all your gods, and frogs were so special in Egypt because they were divine. If you stepped on one, you could be killed for this. So all the frogs, there's frogs all over the place. There's frogs in the laundry. You know, it's terrible. It's like, oh, I'm going to bake a pie. Get that frog out of there. It's not good. And then Pharaoh goes, okay, all right, okay, your God's powerful. Take away the frogs. So, okay, they go and they take away the frogs. And then the frogs, they all die and they stink to high heaven. They just take them and shovel. They take their dead gods in shovels. And this is almost funny. I mean, if you like frogs, I'm sorry. But it's almost funny, though. They're shoveling their dead gods into piles. This is incredible. And then there's the little bugs called gnats, those little, really small, annoying things. Sometimes they call them no-see-ums. You don't even see them. Then you say, hey, there's something burrowing into my skin to drink my blood. This would be an attack on Geb, the earth and vegetation god, because what do? He touches the ground. Okay, like the ground turns into these gnats. Now, every time Pharaoh says, okay, all right, okay, I've had enough. Please take the plague away. The plague is taken away. And I think that Pharaoh figures, see, I alliterated again. I think that Pharaoh figures that, okay, so this God thinks I'm so cool, so he backed off of his punishment. Okay, so I kind of win that. Yeah, it was tough for a little while, but hey, look who's in charge, okay, because God backed off. So the little bugs, then you got flies. This is Kefi. They had a god of bugs. And so the flies are all over the place. Kefi would control it. Oh, he's not controlling this. Who is Yahweh? And of course, okay, all right. Relent on this, and yeah, I'll let the people go. So God relents, and Pharaoh goes, ha, see, I've won again. Doesn't let him go. The plague on the livestock. So the livestock, the cattle gods, Apis and Hathor, they're in charge of the livestock. And the livestock start dying like crazy. Why? Because Yahweh is far stronger than Apis and Hathor. So again, a battle of the gods. Well, these aren't gods at all. They're just made up things. We have the only true God that is. And so, okay, all right. Tell Yahweh that I'm really sorry and that I'll let the people go. So the plague relents. Pharaoh wins again, okay, because the plague is gone. Then there's boils, and this is getting pretty nasty. Thoth, the medical god. So you try all these ointments, you get them at Walmart or Walgreens. Oh, this ointment's supposed to cure everything. It doesn't. The magicians, they couldn't do a thing about this. It was really, really bad. So you have Yahweh taking authority over these gods, and then Pharaoh, yeah, okay, all right, okay, I'll cooperate. So the plague is gone, and then again we have Pharaoh going, yeah, you know what? I think we're not going to do that. Hail destroys the crops, not the sky goddess, just beating the crops to death. And some of the crops survived because they hadn't sprung up high enough, but some of the crops, they were kind of like in full bloom, and they were fully developed, and they got taken out by this massive hailstorm. Yahweh takes out not the sky goddess, the locusts. You have Anubis, the god of the fields, darkness, Ra, the god of the sun, and the death of the firstborn. That's a very important one. They had gods for everything. Now, so the firstborn death, the Pharaoh was a god. The son of Pharaoh was a greater god because the son of Pharaoh would take Pharaoh's place. And this was all the theistic system. So when you see these plagues, it is God, Yahweh, attacking the Roman pantheon. Now, a really cool thing happens here. What is the last thing that God does before the Israelites leave Egypt? Not part of the 10 plagues. Parting the Red Sea. Now, if we go to, did I get that back down in here? Yesterday morning, I found that all my files for this were gone. And so make sure you put this, yeah, okay. We go to Jericho, and the spies are there, and Rahab says to them, before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us. So all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. So a big Canaanite god was Yam, and Yam was the god of the seas and the rivers. And so I think that as a way of communicating, I guess in the sense of a plague, he drowned them all in the ocean, but he communicates to the Canaanites that Yahweh is better than Yam, because Yahweh takes control of the waters and drowns all the Egyptians in the sea, dirty Egyptians. They needed a bath. Goes back. Anybody remember Larry Norman? Okay, yeah, a few of us. Okay, he had that one thing. Okay, ow, what a laugh! How they all took a bath. Okay. Sorry. Memories that I have that no one else cares about. It's all good. Also, now the Amorites and the Amalekites, all the people of the land, Sihon and Og, they were a couple of big kings. They worshipped, as Amnon, they worshipped the gods of that area. And if you take out a king who follows a god, is working to be obedient to this god, it's like taking out the god. So on the way to get to Jericho, okay, we have these gods being defeated, powerful gods within the cultures, they thought, but they were nothing compared to Yahweh, the God of the Israelites. Now, calcifying, and this is a fascinating thing to think about. The Calvinists, and this is fine, the Calvinists, the Reformed theologians, would say that Pharaoh was a reprobate, that he was never going to be redeemed, and so therefore God hardened his heart further. I think in Hugonian thinking, the Hugonian understanding of the hardening process, rather than programming Pharaoh to become harder through all of this, God, knowing him, places him and his people in situations knowing how he will react. God is the great goader. Back in the day, of course, I never did anything like this. Occasionally in teaching, I would have a student who was being, a bit out of sorts on a certain given day, and maybe the student was always out of sorts. And so every day, they're just being an annoyance in the classroom. Okay, and we'll use Janie. I always pick on the guys and say, Johnny or Jimmy. Janie. And Janie is a problem. And I really need Janie to go because she's just going to be disruptive. So what I could actually do with a student like Janie, say, Janie, I'm sorry, you need to stay in your seat, please. Okay, and Janie gets a little bit huffy because I have actually dared to tell her to sit in her seat. And I said, Janie, it really helps to study if you open your book. Like all the other students are. And like I'm singling Janie out, of course, of all the people. And so Janie gets a little bit huffy and then it sits there. Janie, it would really be great if you're going to do the work because you need a pencil and a paper. And here, I've got a pencil for you. I always carry extra pens and pencils because students would use the excuse, oh, Mr. Hugo, I can't do anything because I don't have a pencil. Oh, well, here's one. Here's two if you'd like. Look at their various colors. And so I would do this. And the students are tapping their foot. They're doing other things. And I know the process. The more I try to correct, the more I try to guide, to convince them that they should be doing their work, I know that they're going to get more and more ornery till they finally get to the place where I have to dismiss them from the class, and it's obvious that I need to do this. Would I be wrong to do that? No. And so if I take the student's own personality, which is very caustic, and I use that against them to make the class function better, I think that's okay. And then by the time these students get to the principal is like, oh, you again. You must have had Mr. Hugo today because he doesn't put up with this stuff. Okay, but so God, in doing this to Pharaoh, notice Pharaoh's pride, right? God does this. Oh, I'll relent, I'll repent, they can go. No, they can't. And so I think that Pharaoh's pride kept getting greater and greater and greater, and therefore his resistance to be obedient to God got greater and greater. So the Hugonian thinking is that God is the great goader, and he hardened him by giving him more and more truth in his face. And that Pharaoh just continued to reject this. I don't really see like God going up in heaven, hey, I'm going to take Pharaoh's heart and make it a little harder today. I think he did it by the interactions that Pharaoh had with God. Pharaoh sees himself as a god, and every time that a plague is done or is undone, removed or undone, he thinks that he has bested Yahweh. Oh, I got him. I got him to give in. Conveying and carping. So the people, they go out into the wilderness, and there are 3 days they've got no water. You think that God would know that they need water. Okay, that would be a normal thing. And so the people, it's 16, this is really great how they phrase this. It's actually in chapter 15, verse 22. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went in the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That's why the place is called Marah. The people grumbled against Moses, saying, what are we to drink? So rather than going and saying, hey, Moses, hey, could you ask Yahweh for some water for us? Because that would be so great, because we're really thirsty. But instead, they grumble. And later, as we go through the text, we'll find that they began to say, Moses, you brought us out in this desert to kill us. We should just go back to Egypt. And they implicated God in this. Has God just brought us out here to die? We'd be better off going back to Egypt. So this is a constant carping thing. The whole time God is conveying them, bringing them to the promised land, providing everything that they need. There's manna, there's quail, there's water. We don't have water. What are you doing? Okay, here, hit the rock, water pours out of it. Okay, another time, speak to the rock and water pours out of it. God was providing everything that they needed, but they didn't trust God, and they would carp and carp and carp away. They would rather complain than ask. God's provision for the people is miraculous. And they should have figured this out, that we have a God who can work miracles on our behalf. So why don't we just trust him and ask him? God's provision is miraculous, which demonstrates that he is carrying them rather than human skill and fortune. Rather than thinking, hey, we just got lucky, we found water today. No, God led you to the water, and it was at Merah, and you just throw this big stick into the water, and it becomes drinkable? Whoever heard of that kind of a thing? God is providing for them all the way. Now, grumbling is a trend. We like to grumble. No, not us, of course. Other people, they like to grumble. And we like to grumble about the people who like to grumble about things. And just, ever complain about a complainer? It's just like, kind of doesn't work well. So this is what's going on the whole time. God has this whole thing planned and figured out where he's taking them. Then you have worship instructions. Those are given. Societal laws are given. Things you should do, things you shouldn't do. Worship instructions. This is how you worship me. Here are some of the things that you need to build to worship me well. And so Moses, he's up on the mountain for 40 days. That's a long time. 40 days. Can you imagine? And the people, they say to Aaron, chapter 32, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make gods for us, who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up who brought them out of Egypt? Was it Moses? No, it was the Lord." They got this all messed up. As for this fellow Moses who brought us out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. And Aaron, any children here? Okay, what a dope. I mean, this is so dumb. Aaron answered them, "Take off the golden earrings that your wives, your sons and daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him, and he made it into a cast idol in the shape of a calf, very common within these societies to worship calves, bulls, cows, fashioning it with a tool. And then they said, "These are your gods." This is so dumb. These idols didn't exist when they came out of Egypt. But so the whole thing just gets so bad. God is incredibly upset with the people. Joshua and Moses, they're coming down, and it's like, oh, these are the sounds of defeat. Okay, they were having a big party, probably hooping it up, and it's not the sounds of victory, it's the sound of defeat. And so the story goes on. God is gracious to the people, but still, they continue in these trends of, hey, we're going to worship God today and not tomorrow. But again, the celebration was very immoral and not a good thing at all. Then we have constructing. Now, we have all kinds of precise directions being given and people being specially gifted to make the tabernacle, to make all the furniture, incredibly precise. If you look at this, we have, like around Aaron's robe, you have pomegranate bill, all around the edge. I mean, so people are embroidering these things. I don't know how big the pomegranates were, how big the bells were, but that was put in place so that when Aaron is doing his ministry, sometimes solo in the temple, if they stop hearing the bells ring, Aaron's in trouble. He's probably have to send somebody in to get him. Later, what they would do when the priest would go in, they'd tie a rope around his leg, so they could drag him out if he had erred. So, what is desired here is precision, no slacking, no cutting corners. The best of offerings are given, and the best of skill is given. So these aren't people just like whacking a deck together. Back in my days, my short days of doing construction, you're building a deck. Don't worry about it. If something's a little off, it's okay. It's a deck. But you go into a house, you want everything to be precise. So this is what the people needed to do to be honoring to God. So applications. Number 1, trust that God's process is the best process, even when it is hard. Those of us who have had surgery where they place various metal things in our bodies to make our bodies work better, how many really look forward to that? It's like, no, but it's for the best. And so when you go under the anesthesia, you go under the anesthesia because it's best for you to be asleep, really asleep when they're doing these things. It's okay. We need to trust that God's process is the best even when it's hard. Our part in this is to be obedient to him, even when it might not make the best of sense, but to be obedient to him. understand that there is no one here who is competent to serve the Lord. No one. Where should we be? It's okay. It's okay. It's yeah. Okay. Yeah. Rick is going. Yeah. Okay. We should be in the lake of fire right now. That's where we should be. How can we possibly think that we are qualified to serve the High King of Heaven, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords? How can we think that we're qualified? But God comes in and says, "Yeah, I know all that, but you're qualified." I love the story of Gideon. Again, the Lord, I've mentioned this before. It's one of my favorite Old Testament stories. The Lord sends the angel. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And Gideon's like, "What?" But the angel said he's a mighty warrior. So therefore, he was a mighty warrior. Was he qualified? No. Was he a mighty warrior? Yes. God is the qualifier. Do not compete with God. You cannot win at all. Surrender now. If you know people who don't know Christ yet, they're battling with him, they're battling with the Lord, just stop and surrender. What have you got to lose? Look at your life. It's not going to hurt you to surrender to the Lord and just to commit your life to Christ. It's not going to hurt, and you're not going to win anyway. The one parable, you've got the one king, he's got his defenses. Another king is coming against him with 30,000 people. He's got 10. What do? You sue for terms of peace. Okay, and this is what we have to do with God. Eve in the Garden of Eden and Adam tried competing with God. Didn't go well. Satan tried competing with God. Didn't go well. All through Scripture, people competing with God. Trust that God has your way figured out and provided for. Ask and trust, not complaining. Rather than saying, "Oh God, this is so terrible. What are you doing?" That's complaining. Say, "Lord, this is really hard. I need to trust you through this. And please help me to endure the situation because I want to see what you've got. I want to see your glory on the other side of this." Accept that God is correct. Okay, so we have all these instructions that are given, very precise. On the altar of incense, how you make this, the gold rings and the molding, and the altar of burnt offering, the basin for washing, the Ark of the Covenant, the materials, all these things. Okay. Accept that God is correct in everything he desires for us to do. Now, he doesn't desire for us to make an Ark of the Covenant. Okay, we don't have that much gold. Okay, but that's not his desire. His desire is that we bring honor and glory to Christ. God has given us his best, and we need to respond in like manner. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. Paul says, "I urge you as a prisoner of the Lord, therefore, to live a life worthy of the calling you have received." So we don't live a slacker life for Christ. We seek to serve him all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, all of our strength. The book of Exodus, God is leading us to a better place, and we need to go his way, in his timing, obeying him and trusting him for the process.